Hello, and welcome back to Baby Elias's stories. We now return to Thud by Terry Pratchett, Part 10. There was a crowd of dwarves milling around outside the yard. They did not look belligerent. That is to say, any more belligerent than a species the members of which, by custom and practice, wear a big heavy helmet, mail and iron boots, and carry an axe all the time, will automatically look. But they did seem lost and bewildered, and unsure why they were there. Vimes got Willikins to drive in through the coach arch and take the bodies of the attackers down to Igor, who knew about things like people dying with green mouths. Sybil, Purity, and young Sam were hustled away to a clean office. Interesting thing, Vimes thought, as he watched Sherry and a group of dwarf officers fuss over the child. Even now, in fact, especially now, given the way the tension had made everyone revert to old certainties, he wasn't sure how many female dwarf officers he had. It was a brave female dwarf who advertised the fact in a society where the wearing of even a decent floor-length leather and chain-mail dress instead of leggings positioned you on the moral map on the far side of Tawny and her hard-working co-workers at the Pink Pussycat Club. But introduce a gurgling kid into the room and you could spot them instantly. For all their fearsome clang and beards you could lose a rat in. Carrot pushed his way through the crowd and saluted. "A lot's been happening, sir!" "My word, has it?" said Vimes with manic brightness. "Yes, sir. Everyone was pretty angry when we brought the dead dwarves up from the mine, and what with one thing and another, opening the big door in Treacle Street was pretty popular. All the deep downers have gone, except one." "That'd be Helmcleaver," said Vimes, heading for his office. Carrot looked surprised. "That's right, sir. He's in a cell. I'd like you to have a look at him, if you don't mind. He was crying and moaning and trembling in a corner with lit candles all round him." "More candles? Afraid of the dark?" Vimes suggested. "Could be, sir. Igor says the trouble's in his head." "Don't let Igor try to give him a new one," said Vimes quickly. "I'll go down there as soon as I can." "I've tried talking to him, but he just looks blank, sir." "How did you know he was the one we found?" "I've got some edges and some bits that are an interesting shape," said Vimes, sitting down at his desk. When Carrot looked blank, he went on. "Of the jigsaw puzzle, Captain. But there are lots of bits of sky. However, I think I might be nearly there, because I think I've been handed a corner. What talks underground, sir? You know the dwarves were listening for something underground. You wondered if someone was trapped, right? But is there? I don't know. Something dwarf-made that speaks." Carrot's brow wrinkled. "You're not talking about a cube, are you, sir?" "I don't know. Am I? You tell me." "The deep downers have some in their minds, sir, but I'm sure there's none buried here. They're generally found in hard rocks. Anyway, you wouldn't listen for one. I've never heard of them talking when they're found. Some dwarves have spent years learning how to use just one of them." "Good. Now, what is a cube?" said Vimes, glancing at his in-tray. Oh, good. There weren't any memos from A.E. Pessimal. It's like a book, sir, which talks, a bit like your gooseberry, I suppose. Most of them contain interpretations of dwarf law by ancient lawmasters. It's very old. Magic, I suppose. Suppose, said Vimes. Well, technomantic devices look like things that are built, you know, out of... Captain, you've lost me again. What are devices, and why do you pronounce the capital D? Cubes are a type of device, sir. No one knows who made them or for what original purpose. They might be older than the world. They have been found in volcanoes in the deepest rocks. The deep downers have most of them. They come in all sorts of... Oh, hold on. You mean that when they're dug up, there's dwarf voices from millions of years ago? Surely dwarfs haven't been... No, sir. Dwarves put them on later. I'm not too well up on this. I think when they're first found, they mostly have natural noises like moving water or birdsong or rocks moving, that sort of thing. The Grogs find out how to get rid of those to make room for words. I think. I did hear about one that was the sounds of a forest. 10 years of sounds in a cube less than 2 inches across. And they're valuable, these things. Unbelievably valuable. Especially the cubes. Worth mining through a mountain of granite, as we say. That's a dwarf we, not a copper we, sir. So, digging through a few thousand tons of Ankh-Morpork muck would be worth it then? For a cube? Yes! Is that what all this is about? But how would it get here? The average dwarf might never see one in his whole life. Only Grogs and great chieftains use them. And why would it be talking? All dwarf ones can only be brought to life by a key word. Search me. What do they look like, apart from being cubical, I assume? I've only ever seen a few, sir. They're, up to 6 inches on a side, like old bronze, and they glitter. Green and blue, said Vimes sharply. Yes, sir. They had a few in the mine in Treacle Street. I think I saw them, said Vimes. And I think they've got one more. Voices from the past, eh? How come I've never heard of them before? Carrot hesitated. You're a very busy man, sir. You can't know everything. Vimes detected just a soupçon of a smidgen of a reproach there. Soupçon. S-O-U-P-C with the squiggle O-N. Soupçon. A little bit. A trace. A soupçon of suspicion. Soupçon. Vimes detected just a soupçon of a smidgen of a reproach there. Are you saying I'm a man of narrow horizons, Captain? Oh, no, sir. You're interested in every aspect of police work and criminology. Sometimes it was impossible to read Captain Carrot's face. Vimes didn't bother to try. I'm missing something, he said. But this is about Koom Valley. I know it. Look, what is the secret of Koom Valley? I don't know, sir. I don't think there is one. I suppose the big secret would be which side attacked first. You know, sir, both sides say they were ambushed by the other side. Does that sound very interesting to you? Said Vimes. Would it matter much now? Who started it all? I should say so, sir, said Carrot. But I thought they'd been scrapping since time began. Yes, but Koom Valley was the first official one, sir. Who won? Said Vimes. Sir? It's not a difficult question, is it? Who won the first battle of Koom Valley? I suppose you could say it was rained off, sir, said Carrot. They stopped the grudge match like that because of a bit of rain. For a lot of rain, sir. A thunderstorm just sat there in the mountains above it. There were flash floods full of boulders. The fighters were knocked off their feet and washed away. Some were struck by lightning. It quite ruined the whole day, said Vimes. All right, Captain. Do we have any idea where the bastards have gone? They had an escape tunnel. I bet they did. And collapsed it after them. I've got men digging. Stand them down. They could be in a safe house. They could have got out in a cart. Hell, they could all be wearing helmets in chainmail and passing for city dwarves. Enough of that. We've been running people ragged. Let them go for now. I think we'll be able to find them again. Yes, sir. The grogs went so fast, sir, that they left some other devices. I have secured them for the city. They must have been very frightened. They just took the cubes and ran. Are you all right, sir? You look a bit flustered. Actually, Captain, I feel inexplicably cheerful. Would you like to hear how my day went? The showers in the watch house were the talk of the city. Vimes had paid for them himself after Veterinary made an acidic comment about the coast. They were a bit primitive and were really no more than watering can heads connected to a couple of water tanks on the next floor. But after a night in Ankh-Morpork's underworld, the thought of being really clean was very attractive. Even so, Angua hesitated. This is wonderful, said Sally, turning gently under a spray. Shh! What's wrong? Look, I'm dealing with it, all right, snapped Angua, standing just beyond the shower. It's full moon, okay? The wolf is a bit strong. Sally stopped scrubbing. Oh, I see, she said. It is the whole BATH thing. You just had to say that, didn't you? Said Angua, and forced herself to step onto the tiles. Well, what do you do normally? Said Sally, handing her the soap. Cold water and pretend it's rain. Don't you dare laugh. Change of subject right now. All right. What did you think of Nobby's girlfriend? Said Sally. Tony? Friendly. Good looking. Try perfect physical beauty, astonishing proportions, a walking classic? Well, yes, pretty much, Angua conceded. And all that is Nobby Nob's girlfriend? She seems to think so. You're not telling me she deserves Nobby? Said Sally. Look, Verity Pushpram doesn't deserve Nobby. And she's got a weird squint, arms like a stevedore, and cooks shellfish for a living, said Angua. That's how things are. Is she his old girlfriend? He used to say so, as far as I know. The physical side of the relationship consists of her hitting him with a wet fish whenever he goes near her. Angua squeezed the last of the slime out of her hair. It was tough stuff to lose, and some of it was fighting not to go down the plug hole. As it was, some of it was fighting not to go down the plug hole. That was enough. She didn't like to spend too much time in the SHOWER. Another 6 or so sessions and the smell would have quite gone away. The important thing now was to remember to use a towel and not to shake herself dry. You think I went down there to impress Captain Carrot, don't you? Said Sally behind her. Angua stopped, her head wrapped in toweling. Oh well, it was going to happen sooner or later. No, she said. Your heartbeat says otherwise, Sally said meekly. Don't worry, I wouldn't have a chance. His heart beats faster every time he looks at you, and yours skips a beat every time you see him. Okay then, this is it, said the wolf, who was never far away. This is where we sort it out, claw against fang. No, don't listen to the wolf. But it would help, wouldn't it, if this stupid bitch stopped listening to the bat? Stay out of people's hearts, she growled. I can't. You can't switch off your nose, can you? Can you? The moment of the wolf had passed. Angua relaxed a little. His heart beat faster, did it? No, she said. I can't. Has he ever seen you without your uniform? Ye gods, thought Angua, and headed for her clothes. Well, of course, she mumbled. I meant wearing something else. Like a dress? Sally went on. Come on, every copper spends some time out of uniform. That's how you know you're off duty. But it's pretty much a 24/8 job for us, said Angua. There's always. You mean it is for him because he likes it that way, and so you go along with it? Said the vampire, and that one got through all Angua's defenses. It's my life! Why should I listen to advice from a vampire? Because you're a werewolf, said Sally. Only a vampire would dare to give it, right? You don't have to be at his heel all the time. Look, I've been through all this, understand? It's a werewolf thing. We are what we are. I'm not. You don't get the black ribbon just for signing the pledge, you know. And it doesn't mean you stop craving blood. You just don't do anything about it. At least you can go out at night and chase chickens. There was a stony silence. Then Angua said, You know about the chickens? Yes. I pay for them, you know. I'm sure you do. And it's not as though it's every night. I'm sure it isn't. Look, do you know there are people out there who will volunteer to be a vampire's dinner companion, providing it's all done with style, and we are considered weird? She sniffed. By the way, what did you wash your hair in? Willard Brothers, good girl. Flea shampoo, said Angua. It brings up the gloss, she added defensively. Look, I want to get this clear, right? Just because we spent hours wading around under the city and, okay, maybe saved each other's life once or twice, it does not mean we're friends, okay? We just happen to be there at the same time. You do need some time off, said Sally. I was going to buy a drink for Tony anyway, to say thanks, and Sherry wants to tag along. How about it? We've been stood down for now. Time out for a little fun? Angua struggled with a seething snake's nest of emotions. Tony had been very kind, and far more helpful than you might expect from someone wearing 6 inches of heel and 4 square inches of clothing. Come on, said Sally encouragingly. I don't know about you, but it's going to take a bit of effort to get the taste of that mud out of my mouth. Oh, all right, but this doesn't mean we're bonding. Fine. I'm not a bondage kind of person, added Angua. Yes, said Sally. I can see that. Vimes sat and stared at his notebook. He'd got talking cube written down and circled. Out of the corner of his ear, he could hear the sounds of the city watch rising from below. The bustle in the yard of the old lemonade factory, where the specials were assembling again, just in case. The rattle of the hurry-up wagon, the general murmur of voices coming up through the floor. After some thinking, he wrote Old Well and circled that too. He'd scrumped plums in the gardens of Empirical Crescent with all the other kids. Half the houses were empty and no one cared much. Yes, there had been a well, but it had long been full up with garbage, even then. Grass was growing on the top. They only found the bricks because they looked for them. So let's say that anything buried right at the bottom where the dwarves had headed had been dumped. Oh, more than 50, 60 years ago? You seldom saw a dwarf in Ankh-Morpork even 40 years ago. And they weren't anything like rich or powerful enough to own a cube. They were hard workers seeking, just possibly, a better life. So what human would throw away a talking box worth a mountain of gold? He'd have to be bloody mad. Vimes sat rigidly, staring at the scrolls on the page. In the distance, Detritus was barking a command at someone. He felt like a man crossing a river on stepping stones. He was nearly halfway across, but the next stone was just a bit too far and could only be reached with serious groinal stress. Nevertheless, his foot was waving in the air, and it was that or a ducking. He wrote, rascal. Then he circled the word several times, the pencil biting into the cheap paper. Rascal must have been to Koom Valley. Let's say he found a cube there. Who knows how? Just lying there? Anyway, he brings it home. He paints his picture and goes mad. But somewhere along the line, the cube starts talking to him. Vimes wrote, special word? He drew a circle round it so hard that his pencil broke. Maybe he can't find the word for stop talking. Anyway, he chucks it down a well. He tried to write, did Rascal ever live in Empirical Crescent? And then gave up and tried to remember it. Anyway, then he dies, and afterwards, this damn book is written. It doesn't sell many copies, but recently it's republished and... but now there are lots of dwarves in the city. Some of them read it, and something tells them that the secret is in this cube. They want to find out where it is. How? Damn. Doesn't the book say the secret of Koom Valley is in the painting? Okay. Maybe he somehow painted some kind of code into the painting to say where the cube was. But so what? What was so bad to hear that you killed the poor devils who heard it. I think I'm looking at this wrong. It's not my cow. It's a sheep with a pitchfork. Unfortunately, it goes quack. He was getting lost now, going all over the place, but he'd got a toe on the opposite stone, and he felt he'd made some progress. But to what exactly? I mean, what would really happen if there was proof that, say, the dwarves ambushed the trolls? Nothing that isn't happening already, that's what. You can always find an excuse that your side will accept, and who cares what the enemy thinks? In the real world, it wouldn't make any difference. There was a faint knock at the door. The sort that you use if you secretly hope it won't be answered. Vimes sprang from his chair and pulled the door open. A.E. Pessimal stood there. "Ah, A.E., said Vimes, going back to his desk and laying down his pencil. "Come on in. What can I do for you? How's the arm?" Could you spare a moment of your time, Your Grace?" Your Grace, thought Vimes. Well, he hadn't the heart to object this time. He sat down again. A.E. Pessimal was still wearing the chain-mail shirt with the specials badge on it. He didn't look very shiny. Brick's swipe had bowled him across the plaza like a ball. A.E. Pessimal began. "You'll have to start as a lance constable, but a man of your talents ought to make it to sergeant within a year, and you can have your own office," said Vimes. A.E. Pessimal shut his eyes. How did you know?" he breathed. "You attacked a boozed-up troll with your teeth," said Vimes. "There's a man born for the badge," I thought to myself. "And that's what you've always wanted, right? But you were always too small, too weak, too shy to be a watchman. I can buy big and strong anywhere. Right now, I need a man who knows how to hold a pencil without breaking it." "You'll be my adjutant," he went on. "You'll handle all my paperwork, you'll read the reports, you'll try to figure out what's important, and so you can learn what is important. You'll have to do at least 2 patrols a week." A tear was running down A.E. Pessimal's cheek. "Thank you, Your Grace," he said hoarsely. If A.E. Pessimal had had enough chest to stick out, it would be sticking. "Of course, you'll need to finish your report on the watch first," Vimes added. "That is a matter between you and his lordship. And now, if you will excuse me, I really must get on. I look forward to seeing you working for me, Lance Constable Pessimal." "Thank you, Your Grace." "Oh, and you won't call me Your Grace," said Vimes. He thought for a moment and decided that the man had earned this, all in one go, and added, "Mr. Vimes will do." "And so we make progress," he said to himself, after A.E. Pessimal had floated away. "And his lordship won't like it, so as far as I can see, there's no downside. Quis custodiet ipsos custodes, qui custodes custodient? Was that right, fool? Who watches the watcher that watches the watchman? Probably not. Still, your move, my lord." He was just puzzling over his notebook again when the door opened without an introductory knock. Sybil entered with a plate. "You're not eating enough, Sam," she announced. "And the canteen here is a disgrace. It's all grease and stodge." "That's what the men like, I'm afraid," said Vimes guiltily. "I've cleaned out the tea urn, at least," Sybil went on with satisfaction. "You cleaned out the tea urn?" said Vimes in a hollow voice. It was like being told that someone had wiped the patina off a fine old work of art. "Yes, it was like tar in there. There really wasn't much proper food in the store, but I managed to make you a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich." "Thank you, dear." Vimes cautiously lifted a corner of the bread with his stricken pencil. There seemed to be too much lettuce, which was to say, there was some lettuce. "There's a lot of dwarves come to see you, Sam," said Sybil, as if this was preying on her mind. Vimes stood up so fast that his chair fell over. "Is young Sam all right?" he said. "Yes, Sam. They're city dwarves. You know them all, I think. They say they want to talk to you about..." But Vimes was already clattering down the stairs, drawing his sword as he did so. Shing! The dwarves were clustered nervously by the duty officer's desk. They had that opulence of metalwork, sleekness of beard, and thickness of girth that marked them out as dwarves who were doing very well for themselves, or who had been right up until now. Vimes appeared in front of them like a whirlwind of wrath. "You scum, you rat-sucking little worm-eaters, you heads-down little scurriers in the dark! What did you bring to my city? What were you thinking? Did you want the deep-downers here? Did you dare deplore what Ham-Crusher said? All that bile and ancient lies? Or did you say, well, I don't agree with him, of course, but he's got a point? Did you say, oh, he goes too far, but it's about time somebody said it? And now have you come here to wring your hands and say how dreadful it was nothing to do with you? Who were the dwarves and the mobs then? Aren't you community leaders? Were you leading them? And why are you here now, you ugly, snivelling grubbers? Is it possible that now, after that bastard's bodyguards tried to kill my family, you're here to complain? Have I broken some code, trodden on some ancient toe? To hell with it. To hell with you. He could feel the words straining, fighting to get out, and the effort of restraining them filled his stomach with acid and made his temples throb. Just one whine, he thought. Just one pompous moan. Go on. "Well?" he demanded. The dwarves had perceptibly moved backwards. Vimes wondered if they'd read his thoughts. They'd echoed in his brain loudly enough. A dwarf cleared his throat. "Commander Vimes," he began. "Your paws strong in the arm, aren't you?" Vimes demanded. "One half of burley and strong in the arm? You make crossbows?" "Yes, Commander. And remove your weapons, all of them! All of you!" Vimes snapped. The room fell silent. Out of the corner of his eye, Vimes saw a couple of dwarf officers who had at least been pretending to be engaged in paperwork rising from their seats. He was being dangerously stupid. Part of him knew, but right now he wanted to hurt a dwarf and he wasn't allowed to do it with steel. Most of the battle stuff they wore was simply for clang in any case, but a dwarf would sooner drop his drawers than put aside his axe. And these were serious city dwarves, with seats in the guilds and everything. Ye gods, he was going too far. He managed to grunt. All right, keep your battle axes. Leave everything else at the desk. You'll get a receipt. For a moment, quite a long moment, he thought. No, he hoped they would refuse. But one of them, somewhere in the group, said, I think we must do this for the commander. These are difficult times. We must learn to fit them. Vimes went up to his office, hearing the clinks and clangs behind him, and landed so violently in his chair that this time a wheel snapped off. The receipt was a nasty touch. He was quite pleased with it. On his desk, on a little stand that Sybil had made for it, was his official baton of office. It was in fact the same size as the ordinary copper's truncheon, but was turned out of rosewood and silver instead of lignum, vitae, or oak. It still had plenty of weight, though. Certainly enough to leave the words, Protector of the King's Peace, printed back to front on a dwarf skull. The dwarves were ushered in, looking slightly less heavy. Just one word, Vimes thought, as the acid swirled. One damn word. Go on, just a breath, Rom. Very well. What can I do for you? He said. I'm sure you know all of us, Porus began, trying to smile. Probably. The dwarf next to you is Grabport Thundergust, who has just launched the new Ladies' Secrets range of perfumes and cosmetics. My wife uses your stuff all the time. Thundergust, in traditional chainmail, a three-horned helmet and an enormous axe strapped across his back, gave Vimes an embarrassed nod. Vimes's gaze moved on. And you are Sether Ironcrust, proprietor of the chain of bakeries of the same name. And you are surely Gimlet, owner of two famous dwarf delicatessens and the newly opened Yo Rat in Attic B Street. Vimes looked round the office, dwarf after dwarf, until he got back to the front row and a dwarf of fairly modest dress by dwarf standards, who had been watching him intently. Vimes had a good memory for faces, and had seen this one recently, but couldn't place it. Perhaps it had been behind a well-flung half-brick. You. I don't think I know, he said. Oh, we haven't exactly been introduced, Commander, said the dwarf cheerfully. But I'm very interested in the theory of games. Or Mr. Shine's Thud Academy, Vimes thought. The dwarf's voice sounded like the one that had, he'd admitted, been of diplomatic help downstairs. He wore a simple plain round helmet, a plain leather shirt with some basic mail on it, and his beard was clipped to something tidier than the general dwarfish gorse bush effect. Gorse, Gorse, a spiny yellow-flowered European shrub, Ulex europaeus of the legume family. Gorse. And his beard was clipped to something tidier than the general dwarfish gorse bush effect. Compared to the other dwarves, this one looked streamlined. Vimes couldn't even see an axe. Indeed, he said. Well, in fact, I don't play 'em. So what's your name? Bashfulson, Commander. Grog Bashfulson. Quietly, Vimes picked up his truncheon and rolled it in his finger. Not underground, then, he said. Some of us move on, sir. Some of us think that darkness isn't a depth. It's a state of mind. That's nice of you, said Vimes. Oh, friendly and forward-looking are we now? Where were you yesterday? But now I've got all the aces. Those bastards murdered 4 city dwarves. They broke into my home, tried to kill my wife, and now they've had it away on their toes. Wherever they've gone, they're going down, coming up. He put the truncheon back on its stand. As I said, what can I do for you, gentlemen? He got the sense that they were all turning, physically or mentally, to Bashfulson. I see, he thought. It seems that what we have here is a dozen monkeys and 1 organ grinder, eh? How can we help you, Commander? Said the grog. Vimes stared. You could have stopped them. That's how you could have helped. Don't give me those somber faces. Maybe you didn't say yes, but you sure as hell didn't say no. Loud enough. I owe you not one damn thing. Don't come to me for your bloody absolution. Right now, by going out onto the street, walking up to the biggest troll you can see and shaking him warmly by the hand. Maybe, said Vimes, or just going out into the street. Quite frankly, I'm busy, gentlemen, and the middle of a horse race is not the time to be mending fences. They'll be heading for the mountains, said Bashfulson. They'll steer clear of Uberwald and Lancer. They won't be sure of meeting friends there. That means going into the mountains via Llamedos. Lots of caves there. Vimes shrugged. We can see you're annoyed, Mr. Vimes, said Strong in the Arm. But I've got 2 dead assassins in the morgue, said Vimes. One of them died of poison. What do you know about that? And I'm Commander Vimes, thank you. It's said they take a slow poison before they go on an important mission, said Bashfulson. No turning back, eh? Said Vimes. Well, that's interesting. But it's the living that concern me right now. He stood up. I have to go and see a dwarf in the cells who does not want to talk to me. Ah, yes, that would be helm clever, said Bashfulson. He was born here, Commander, but went off to study in the mountains more than 3 months ago, against his parents' wishes. I'm sure he never intended anything like this. He was trying to find himself. Well, he can start looking in my cells, said Vimes crisply. May I be there when you question him? Said the grog. Why? Well, for one thing, it may prevent rumors that he was mistreated. Or start them, said Vimes. Who watches the watchmen? He asked himself. Me. Bashfulson gave him a cool look. It could calm the situation, sir. I don't habitually beat up prisoners, if that's what you're suggesting, said Vimes, and I am sure you would not wish to do so tonight. Vimes opened his mouth to shout the grog out of the building and stopped, because the cheeky little sod had got it right slap bang on the money. Vimes had been on the edge since leaving the house. He'd felt a tingling across his skin and a tightness in his gut and a sharp, nasty little headache. Someone was going to pay for all thisness, and it didn't need to be a screwed up bit player like Helm Clever. He was not certain at all, what he'd do if the prisoner gave him any lip or tried to be smart. Beating people up in little rooms, he knew where that led. And if you did it for a good reason, you'd do it for a bad one. You couldn't say, we're the good guys, and do bad guy things. Sometimes the watching watchman inside every copper's head could use an extra pair of eyes. Justice has to be seen to be done, so he'd see it done up good and proper. Gentlemen, he said, keeping his eye on the grog, but talking to the room at large. I know all of you. You all know me. You're all respected dwarves with a stake in this city. I want you to vouch for Mr. Bashfulson, because I've never met him before in my life. Come on, Seether. I've known you for years. What do you say? They killed my son, said Ironcrust. A knife dropped into Vimes's head. It slipped down his windpipe, sliced his heart, cut through his stomach and disappeared. Where the rage had been, there was a chill. I'm sorry, Commander, said Bashfulson quietly. It's true. I don't think Gunter Ironcrust was interested in the politics. You understand? He just took a job at the mine because he wanted to feel like a real dwarf and work with a shovel for a few days. They left him to the mud, said Ironcrust, in a voice that was eerily without emotion. Any help you need, we will give. Any help. But when you find them, kill them all. Vimes could think of nothing more to say than, I will catch them. He didn't say, kill them. No, not if they surrender. Not if they don't come at me armed. I know where that leads. Then we will leave and let you get about your business, said Strong in the Arm. Grog Bashfulson is known to us indeed. A little modern, perhaps, a little young, not the kind of grog we grew up with, but, yes, we'd vouch for him. Good night, Commander. Vimes stared at his desk as they filed out. When he looked up, the grog was still there, with a patient little smile. You don't look like a grog. You look like just another dwarf, said Vimes. Why haven't I heard of you? Because you are a policeman, perhaps, said Bashfulson meekly. Okay, I take the point. But you're not a deep downer? Bashfulson shrugged. I can think deep thoughts. I was born here, Commander, just like Helm Clever. I don't believe I need a mountain over my head in order to be a dwarf. Vimes nodded. A local lad, not some mountain greybeard. Got a quick brain, too. No wonder the leaders like him. All right, Mr. Bashfulson, you can tag along, he said. But it's on 2 conditions, okay? Condition 1, you've got 5 minutes to lay your hands on a Thud set. I think you can do that. I think I can too, said the dwarf, smiling faintly. And the other condition? How long will it take you to teach me to play? Said Vimes. You've never played it at all? No. A certain troll showed me the game a little while ago, but I've never played games since I grew up. I used to be good at tiddly rats when I was a nipper, though. Footnote 12. A famous Ankh-Morpork gutter sport, second only to dead rat conkers. Turd races in the gutter appeared to have died out, despite an attempt to take them upmarket with the name poo sticks. End footnote 12. No, a certain troll showed me the game a little while ago, but I've never played games since I grew up. I used to be good at tiddly rats when I was a nipper, though. Well, a few hours should be, Bashfulson began. We don't have time, said Vimes. You've got 10 minutes. The drinking had started in The Bucket, in Gleam Street. This was the Coppers' pub. Mr. Cheese, the owner, understood about coppers. They liked to drink somewhere where they wouldn't see anything that reminded them they were a copper. Fun was not encouraged. It was Tawnee who suggested that they move to Thank Gods It's Open. Angua wasn't really in the mood, but she hadn't the heart to say no. The plain fact was that, while Tawnee had a body that every other woman should hate her for, she compounded the insult by actually being very likable. This was because she had the self-esteem of a caterpillar, and, as you found out in any kind of conversation with her, about the same amount of brain. Perhaps it all balanced out. Perhaps some kindly god had said to her, Sorry, kid, you are going to be thicker than a yard of lard, but the good news is that's not going to matter. She had a stomach made of iron, too. Angua found herself wondering how many hopeful men had died trying to drink her under the table. Alcohol didn't seem to go to her head at all. Maybe it couldn't find it. But she was pleasant, easy-going company if you avoided allusion, irony, sarcasm, repartee, satire, and words longer than chicken. Angua was tetchy. Tetchy, T-E-T-C-H-Y, irritably or peevishly sensitive, touchy, tetchy. Angua was tetchy because she was dying for a beer, but the young man behind the bar thought that a pint of Winkles was the name of a cocktail. Given the drinks on offer, perhaps this was not surprising. What? Said Angua, reading the menu, is a screaming orgasm. Ah, said Sally. Looks like we got to you just in time, girl. No, sighed Angua as the others laughed. That was such a vampire response. I mean, what's it made of? Almonte, Walulu, beer haggis, whiskey cream, and vodka, said Tawnee, who knew the recipe for every cocktail ever made. And how does it work? Said Shiri, craning to see over the top of the bar. Sally ordered 4 and turned back to Tawnee. So, you and Nobby Nobs, eh? She said. How about that? 3 sets of ears fled. The other thing you got used to in the presence of Tawnee was silence. Everywhere she went quiet. Oh, and the stairs. The silent stairs. And sometimes in the shadows a sigh. There were goddesses who'd kill to look like Tawnee. He's nice, said Torni'i. He makes me laugh and he keeps his hands to himself. Three faces locked in expressions of concentrated thought. This was Nobby they were talking about. There were so many questions they were not going to ask. Has he shown you the tricks he can do with his spots? Angua said. Yes, I thought I'd whittle myself. He's so funny. Angua stared into her drink. Shiri coughed. Sally studied the menu. And he's very dependable, said Torni'i. And, as if dimly aware that this was still not sufficient, she added sadly, if you must know, he's the first boy who's ever asked me out. Sally and Angua breathed out together. Light dawned. Ah, that was the problem. And this one's a bad case. I mean, my hair's all over the place. My legs are too long, and I know my bosom is far too... Torni'i went on, but Sally had raised a quieting hand. First point, Torni'i. My real name's Betty, said Torni'i, blowing a nose so exquisite that the greatest sculptor in the world would have wept to carve it. It went blurt. First point then, Betty, Sally managed, struggling to use the name, is that no woman under 45, 50, Angua corrected. Right, 50. No woman under 50 uses the word bosom to name anything connected to her. You just don't do it. I didn't know that, Torni'i sniffed. It's a fact, said Angua. And, oh dear, how to begin to explain the jerk syndrome to someone like Torni'i, on whom the name Betty stuck like rocks to a ceiling. This wasn't just a case of the jerk syndrome. This was it, the quintessential, classic, pure platonic example, which should be stuffed and mounted and preserved as a teaching aid for students in the centuries to come. And she was happy with Nobby. What I've got to tell you now is, she began, and faded in the face of the task, is... Look, shall we have another drink? What's the next cocktail on the menu? Shiri peered at it. Pink, big, and wobbly, she announced. Classy! We'll have 4. The jerk syndrome. Described in Thud, this is a condition that may be experienced by a woman who is so beautiful, so alluring that, as Angua describes it, any man with half a brain isn't even going to think about asking her out, because it's obvious she's too grand for the likes of him. This leads her to believe that the problem is at her end, and that there must be something wrong with her. This persists until she meets a man who does not have half a brain, i.e. is too stupid to realize she'll likely reject him, or is so used to rejection that it doesn't bother him, or has some other flaw that stems from an even more major flaw. And he does in fact ask her out, and she is so grateful that she says yes. It is implied that problems ensue because she is, as it were, going to a fancy lavish restaurant and only ordering a bread roll and maybe a small salad. The concept is used in reference to Torni'i, who is the quintessential example of this with Nobby, although the strange part is that she actually likes him. The jerk syndrome.